The physical environment. These chairs actually represent an obstacle, don't they? Forces you, it channelizes you in certain directions, certain ways, unless you like vault them or something like that. Behind us, that large pillar would provide definitely some cover and concealment. That's the physical environment. The cultural environment. Here in America, in downtown D.C., I can take one step and be salsa dancing. Next is reggae, and then I'm in Chinatown. Each one of those cultures may have different mores and taboos. And that can offend someone unintentionally. No different than Hell's Kitchen and the Italian and Irish thing in New York back in the day. The emotional environment. Some places can be very emotionally charged. Religious services, weddings, political rallies, divorces. There's some knowing laughter out there. I heard you. Beyond that, or within that bubble, we have the law. Now we have a scope of laws that we have to take into consideration. The laws of purchase, ownership, where I can and cannot carry, the laws of self-defense to include intervening on behalf of a third party. There's a spectrum of law out there. We have to operate within that bubble. This starts driving us to acquire skills and tools. Hard skills, like doing a draw stroke. Soft skills, talking to people, managing deconfliction, de-escalation. And then guns and equipment. Figure out what you need to know. This Venn diagram, I like it because it depicts a couple of things. First off, here we have stuff you know. Stuff you don't know. Now you're going to notice right here that mild overlap of things that you don't know. And I would harken back to a Secretary Rumsfeld's statement about known knowns and unknown knowns and known unknowns. All right, he took some guff for it back in the day, but it actually had a kind of a point there. Now, I'm going to add one more layer to it. And there is stuff you know that you think you know is wrong. Many of us are victims of gun store lore, shall we say. I'll just shoot him and drag him into my house, kind of things, stuff like that, which flies in the face of common sense and modern criminal science technology. And it's very difficult when people have glommed on to a bit of knowledge, they become vested in it, very much so. And it's almost as a form of insult to whoever taught them. They won't let it go and will fly in the face. I'll throw one out right now. Does anyone here, please God, know carry on an empty chamber? Good. Okay, we'll leave that go. All right, good. Well, there is a segment of society out there that insists on doing that. And it's almost similar to trying to put your seatbelt on just before an accident.
The Israeli draw, they use that as a...
That's usually how they do that. And they're unaware of the history behind that technique and the fact that it's long since been passed into the dustbin of history. In my view, guns and gear are great. I mean, obviously it's part of the decision process, but it shouldn't be, the mission should drive the gear train. If I can quote my departed friend Pat Rogers in that regard. And acquiring skills, I had one young lady who took all my classes and then went gun shopping. And I thought, well, that is certainly a novel approach. She's smart. Now, here's the balancing act, because we all have that the costs, time, effort, money, have to be balanced against the utility and the opportunities and the competing values. And well, you've got your job. Some of you have got families. Geez, why? It just goes on and on out there. And you have to think, this is a high impact, low order, high impact event. Probably won't happen, but if it does, well, then I got to be ready for it. But in between that point and there, you've got, well, I got to take kids to the park. The dog needs to go to the vet. Boss wants me to show up to work so I can earn money to do everything else. These are all things, so you have to apportion your time. And to do that, you really have to look at what the actual problems are. So here we have a very thoughtful fellow. Here are some hard skills examples. Load unload, reload, the draw stroke, clearing a malfunction, precision speed drills, employing pepper spray. I'm a huge fan of vitamin P. A huge fan. It draws with it its own logistical training of training and acquisition, but it gives you, to use a quote from my friend Chuck Haggard, it's something between a harsh word and a magazine dump, which makes a lot of sense. Craig Douglas of ShivWorks calls it I jab in a can. The other thing we should really put attention to is the ability to stop massive bleeding. If we have learned nothing during this almost 16 years now of overseas unpleasantness, the ability to stop massive bleeding is a basic foundational skill. Who here has taken a good trauma class? Okay, you guys hands down. Who here has taken multiple shooting classes? Yeah, here come the hands up. Okay, here's my point. Reapportion some of that time. Tourniquet some pressure dressings and carry them. Oh, and dot torture is a mind-bending, difficult. Hit the Googles. Now, soft skills, recognizing pre-incident indicators and evolving situations. Managing unknown contacts. Again, credit to my friend Craig Douglas of ShivWorks. He calls it muck for managing unknown contacts. It's like, I'm aware, I put up I have a verbal barrier. Sir, would you stop right there? I can't help you, I'm sorry. I just need a couple. Sir, I can't help you. Usually you get one of these at this point. God bless you, and they move on. What does God bless you really mean? F you. That's exactly correct.
That's okay.
John Farnham used to call this talking to Goofy, but Craig's moving it on, and he now calls it managing unknown contacts. Excellent instructor, excellent class, highly recommended. Know and apply the law. Fortunately, there are a lot of very reputable people out right now, NRA Carry Guard among them, offering education on the laws of self-defense. Understanding that basic human psychology, body language, and communication, like that guy raging away outside that car. If you know what it is, you know it's a display. It can transition to violence, but you know at that moment he's just in display mode. And when did he really ramp up? When those other two guys showed up, and then he had an audience to really go crazy. That's basic psychology. And then keeping your cool and still functioning adroitly. That is the hard part, and you can still train to it. Hard skills and soft skills. I love this next part. I'm so proud of that. I mean, I found that. Okay? The yin and the yang. Now here we are. Now this guy is taking his injects. What do I need to know? Well, you can use the media, YouTube, various gun fora are out there with self-defense forum and classes, things, whatnot. You can join groups of like-minded individuals. The pack, not the herd. And educate each other. You can screen out venues and instructors to guarantee that your money is being spent where you need it and how you need it spent. Once you've identified the skill, you take steps to acquire it, validate, maintain. Here's the problem. Skill maintenance. Skills will erode over time. And then it's a continuous cycle. Now, what if along the way you find another way to do something? Well, if it's valid and superior, do not be wed to what you were doing before. Discard it. Now, I will also say this. In my mid-50s, well into my mid-50s at this point, I have learned that I don't reprogram quite as easily as I used to. Yuck it up now, fella, your day is coming. All right? So that has to be taken into account. But if it's worth it, then you make the investment. Now, what potential encounters do we have out there we should be considering ourselves with? Now, this is not to scale, because if it were, all of this would be way down here. But up front, we've got amiable social exchange. Good morning, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm well also. You have a pleasant day. You too, pal. America. Isn't that great when we America here in America? The eternal pursuit, where boy chases girl chases boy chases boy, girl chases girl. I can't keep up anymore. It's past me at this point. But the eternal pursuit continues. The polite society. Nuisance and friction, street beggars, arrogant people, and they're out there, arrogant, inconsiderate people. Chemically altered people, and there's two kinds. There are legally chemically altered people, and there are illegally chemically altered people, but they're chemically altered nonetheless. Emotionally disturbed persons, EDP. Social conflict of violence. Now there's essentially two kinds of violence and various colors within. One is called social violence. We refer to it as social violence, and there's asocial violence. Social violence is we're at the bar, and we're competing for the attentions of a young lady. And then it's, F me, man, no, F you, F you, F me. And then we're doing that thing, the man dance begins. Now, I'm not going to say that social violence cannot turn very, very lethal, because it can. But there are also rules associated with social violence to the effect of, leave now, or I'm going to kick your ass. All right? So there's rules to that. I recommend the readings of Rory Miller, writings of Rory Miller and Mark McYoung on this topic to you. Rory Miller and Mark McYoung. Along the way, we've got, aggressive handlers that can turn into strong-arm robbers, bumps, road rage, alcohol, holy cow, or other drugs, whatnot. Men will perform for their women. Ladies, you know it, right? You've seen it all the time. Insults, egos. Bam. We go down here, and now we're crossing or approaching the lethal threshold, where deadly force can be justified in the eyes of the law. Here we have antisocial or asocial predatory violence. This is criminal violence intended to inflict their will upon you in order to turn you into prey, take your money, your possessions, your body, or your life from you, for whatever motivation. Now, up front, I've got strong-arm robbery, assault, rape. Strong-arm robbery. If I approach this gentleman and say, hey, dude, give me your wallet, or I'm going to fuck you up. He produces, what do you carry? What's your carry gun?
45.
1911?
Yeah.
Old school, old-time religion. All right, he produces his 1911 and promptly ventilates me. I now have two 45 caliber holes in my chest. All right, that's one data point. He'd be able to justify that because north of 65 or 70-ish, all right. He doesn't have the physical capacity to necessarily fight me off that way. Disparity of force. Over here, this young stud, if I say that, he says, F you, and then we throw down. So that's why there's kind of a gray area here to consider this lethal threshold, strong-arm robberies and assault. Is this an assault worthy of shooting someone?
No.
Generally not. Generally not. Can it become that way? Potentially. Yeah. Down here, of course, yes, absolutely, that heinous crime is definitely falls within the realm of defense up to including lethal force.
I grew up in California, and rape used to be a capital offense when I was a kid.
No kidding.
Definitely offense.
That is an interesting data point.
They changed it by the time I was a teenager.
Now we've got armed robbery, takeover robberies, home invasions, mass violence, and now we've got dedicated killers. Boston, Chattanooga, Aurora, San Bernardino, we can sit here and tick them off time by time by time. It's just where we are right now.
What's a takeover robbery?
A takeover robbery is I roll into a store and we get everybody on the floor and we take over the space and hold it. A takeover robbery, absolutely. Now we have to have our skills matched to that encounter spectrum. Skill number one, I call it DIBA, or don't be an asshole. It is amazing how easy your life can be if you go through life not really offending people all the time. Just don't be an asshole. MYOB also, mind your own business. Keep your ego in check. Be self-aware. And by self-awareness, there's a whole slew of skills behind that. How are you walking? If you're walking like this, well, you are the slowest gazelle in the herd, aren't you? Yeah. That can get you attention. What if you're walking like this? That will get you attention as well. You're challenging people now. You want to be heads up, looking around, acknowledging people if that's appropriate, and moving through life. You want to be actively deselected. Look like work. You want to look like work. Good communication. I'm sorry I can't help you. I said, get back. Note this difference. Get back. Or, motherfucker, get back. One is a command, the other is an insult. That can trigger a response that you don't want to escalate into. Ma'am, are you okay? Good, good. Stay with me. Recognize nuisance and friction. Avoid, depart, de-escalate, appropriately de-escalate. Obviously, if someone's rocking your brains out, you can't say, let's talk this out. But if you have a situation where you can just do this. Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. My apologies. That was every ounce of pride you had, you just swallowed. But somebody has to adult. Now, if someone persists on being obnoxious, moving towards you, red face, whatever, well, then now you got another problem to deal with. Well, you can disarm so many people by a simple apology. I didn't see you. My apologies. How about this? You could be right. Let's call the police. You're dead right. You could be right. Let's call the police. Stay right there, please. Thanks. Let's just call the police. That's for that kind of interaction at that one end of the spectrum. Obviously, if it's a criminal interaction, well, then we got other skills we have to employ. Understand flight, freeze, posture. You got to be careful when you say that one. Social conflict and violence. Some empty hand skills are very useful. I no longer do the MMA thing, or it was a World War II competitive gym a lot. But I've got 5 or 6 tricks I can still do pretty well to inflict pain, to create space where I can leave or employ a weapon. These kind of classes are not nearly as involved as some of the other ones. I would also caution you to caveat emptor. Because there's a lot of crap out there as well. Do some research. Pepper spray, again, I'm a huge fan of vitamin P. Improvised weapons. Now down here is the most likely events, much more likely skills, particularly right about in here. I'm here to tell you it's very difficult to sell training in that market niche. Because everybody wants to come over here and do magazine dumps and whatnot. But here, at this end of the spectrum though, these are much less likely event, much higher consequences. Skills are like ice cream. There's all kinds, the hard skills, soft skills. Everyone has favorites. I would also, when you develop a particular skill set, everyone loves to run a target out like 5 yards. And shoot holes in it really fast, and God, I'm great. Well, try 7 yards. Try control pairs. Try transitioning between targets. Try shooting from retention. Try it with just one hand, the other hand running a flashlight. Move outside your box. Because until you expand that skill set box, well, you may find yourself in a situation where you cannot match your skills to the problem. This is an example of what I think right looks like. And you're going to notice a couple of things in this video. First off is that right can look awfully damned ugly.
The beer guy is walking out of the drive-thru, but as soon as he did, I saw the guy coming with a gun.
The owner of a carryout in Elyria faces a struggle of life and death when a would-be robber tries to force his way through a door to the cash register of the store. The man eventually succeeds in getting through the door, but the owner has a surprise for him. A gun she carries in her hip pocket.
I reacted as fast as I could to shut the door to get a barrier between him and I, and he starts busting through the door. He makes it through, and as soon as I see him, I shot him.
Once the tables have been turned on the bandit, he makes a mad dash for safety, far away from the store and the gun-toting owner.
Back in the days in the Olympics, when I used to watch as a kid, they always had like an event, and they had hold of the scorecards. Yeah. Well, here come the scorecards. 9-8, 9-7, 9-8, 9-9. That was a pretty solid run, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, now think about this. What was her first clue that she had a problem?
The guy killed with a gun.
Yeah, that's, yes, yes. You are, in fact, smarter than you look. That is such a relief to me. The first clue she had was someone moving toward her deliberately with a pistol. How much ambiguity is there in that situation? There's no ambiguity at all. What was her response? Holy cow. She ran inside her store, slammed the door shut, used her body as a brace against the door. What did the beer delivery guy do? He was like, what the hell is going on here?
The other guy on the floor?
The beer guy that was there. He was outside. What happened to him? What happened to him was his shock threshold had busted. He was like, I cannot process what is going on here. And he was essentially frozen in place. This was not her first rodeo. This was their first time fighting back, but this was not her first rodeo, as they say. Now, so she goes in there. She slams the door shut. She uses her body to wedge the door. It's like a doorstop.
And below the window.
Yep. And then she was carrying her pistol in a pocket pistol, as it were. And I've got no doubt that when she went to the gun store, well, this is easy. I can do this. She never considered for a second that kickoff on game day may have her down here like this. And guess what? You can't do now. So it took her a moment, longer than she was probably used to get that pistol into play. Okay, meanwhile, he's bashing his way in. How determined was he to get into that store? He was seriously damn determined to get into that store. So eventually, she gets knocked out of the way. He comes in. He's halfway between the door frame and the door. She leans back. And who here thinks that she's ever rehearsed shooting across her body at someone shoved and jammed in a door jamb? Never once. But the skill set was get the muzzle on this guy and start working the trigger. She shot him 3 times. How long did it take for him to depart the scene at that point? Oh, that was nearly instantaneous. He was like, I gotta go home and do my physics homework. And he was gone. That is the rule to these things. He was there to victimize her. He was not there to fight her. And the second it turned into a fight, it's like, I'm out. How come he didn't drop right there and stop? Well, pistols are wimpy, in case you did not aware of this. Another soft skill you should understand is pistol ballistics. I've got information to include autopsy photos of a guy that was killed by a police department in Pennsylvania. And he was shot 22 times. 22 times. Now, the autopsy, he had 1 bullet in his neck, which may have hit down here in his ribs and deflected up. He had a bunch of 40 caliber wounds in his abdomen down here, below his diaphragm. And my mentor, Tom Gibbons, is fond of saying, what does someone do after they've been shot beneath the diaphragm? The same thing they were doing before they got shot. He had bullets in his butt. He had his right arm was broken from a bullet. His feet had been turned to hamburger. One of the cops had rolled under the car and shot and gave him the hot foot. They swarmed on top of him, and it took 3 officers to get him the cuffs on him. Now, he's lying there on the table, laid out, and he still has EKG leads on him because he was alive when the EMT showed up. All right? 22 bullet holes. What kind of drug do you think he was on? I got PCP. What else you got? Meth? What else you got? Bath salts? That's always a famous one. He was on a little bit of marijuana, adrenaline, and testosterone. Now, if you don't think that's possible, go to the YouTubes and read some Medal of Honor citations. Look up Roy Benavidez from the Vietnam War. That guy was about this tall, and he went to a helicopter shoot-down incident, threw guys over his shoulder, and took them to a pickup zone, while killing North Vietnamese Army soldiers back and forth all the time. It's just an amazing story. And you know what? Yes, he did. You know how he was able to do that? Testosterone, adrenaline, and the love of his brothers. That's how he did that. That's how he did that. Roy Benavidez. And this is what wrong looks like.
This is cell phone video you'll only see on Fox 2. It captures 2 girls exchanging blows at the Farmington skate park. Watch as someone breaks up the fight with the help of a black object in his right hand. It appears to be a gun. It happened Tuesday night. No one called the police.
Ma'am, if I could, what's your name? Yes. Angelica, I can't help but notice. The look on your face is unmistakable. And that look was, what a fucking idiot. Okay, am I lying? No. He broke up a girl fight with a pistol in his hand.
Yeah.
Is that self-defense against death or serious bodily injury?
No.
Is that preventing a serious crime against someone else?
No.
No. That was pure ego, pure stupid inaction. There are consequences to carrying, and it changes everything. Every potential interaction we have, everywhere we go, we've got the capacity in the back of our minds, forget about it until you need it, but you have the capacity upon your person to instantaneously end your life. And that changes everything. Someone has to adult. Ma'am, yes, question.
When robberies happen, such as in that store, and the owner pulls or shoots, does that then provide the shield and they don't get, attempted robberies don't happen again?
All right, what you're saying, would that action dissuade other criminals from doing something like that? I would ask, all right, YouTube, I have a Google Internet project for you guys. It can go either way. I would talk to you about a guy in Los Angeles by the name of Lance Thomas. Mr. Thomas had a very high-end watch store, Rolexes and stuff like that, in a neighborhood in L.A. that gradually turned bad. And one day he thought, well, I better get a gun. So he bought a revolver and he got some pistols. Shortly after that, he was robbed and he had to shoot somebody. Well, he thought, well, that didn't work out so good because I could shoot him more than I thought to because pistols are wimpy. So now I have to have more guns and better guns. I forget the exact number of shootings he was involved in, 4 or 5, but they kept trying him. They kept trying him. Eventually, he moved out of there. Now, there are other stores where there is definitely, you could argue, a deterrent effect. And overall, if you read Professor Lott's studies, more guns, less crime, an armed society is a polite society, it can have an effect. But I can't speak to individual cases. I mean, I can just talk on the periphery, either pole. Thank you. And while we're at, well, here we are, questions and comments anyway. So what else you got for me? Come on now, you can't. This is my last class over the weekend. You got to have something going on. Well, I have a question. If you don't have a question for me, I have a question for you. What is the number one indicator of impending interaction with someone, desired or not?
Eye contact.
Eye contact and deliberate movement towards you. Negotiating proximity. Hardwire that in.